Okay, good. Let's go ahead and get started. I know we're expecting a lot of people, so hopefully everyone will get on soon enough. Welcome everyone. This is Melissa George from the Consortium for Service Innovation, and on the phone with me I have my colleague Kelly Murray, and I'm not sure if Jill's on or not, but
yes,
glad
I
to
am.
have you. Oh, hi Jill.
Hi.
So we're glad to have you all here today. We've been very excited about the release of KCS V6, and we wanted to have this call just to make sure everybody knew about V6 and particularly the certification, and making sure that if you are V5 certified to upgrade to V6, why the bridge exam is still available. So welcome to everybody. Thank you again for being supporters of the KCS Academy and the consortium's work. We really appreciate having you part of that network to really move KCS forward out into the community. So I have an agenda here somewhere. So the topics we're going to cover is just the general timeline for V6, V5 and V6, the upgrade, and talk about what changes we've made to the practices guide, talk about how to take the exam and what's available for exam options, how to register for the exam. And then I'm going to go over kind of a high level of the objectives that are part of the study guide to give you an idea of what's on the exam. And then we'll have time for Q&A, and I ask that you can send your questions in the chat, because we have so many people, it's probably best to manage it through the chat so Kelly can kind of facilitate the questions coming through. But I do really want to have some time to answer your questions. I tried to put together as many things as I thought you might need to know about, but I'm sure there's something that I forgot. And then we'll talk briefly about some updates we've had and some upcoming events. So what is KCS V6? So we had a meeting almost more than 4 years ago with some of the consortium innovators and our board of directors, and we talked about what is the future state of KCS? What do we want to be over the next 3 to 5 years as far as the methodology goes? And where we landed was that KCS is become the best practice in the support industry for knowledge management, but there's no reason why KCS can't be the best practice for knowledge management and other functions outside of, in addition to support. So that was what we kind of made our mission on how could we make V6 more generic. And so that's kind of where we started with it. So what that entailed was that we needed to do some of the vocabulary updates. We realized that all of our backgrounds came out of support, and we talked about everything in terms of support analysts and cases and incidents and very support-like vocabulary. So it was a big undertaking to start to get us to shift from thinking about things around a case and an incident to things that now we're thinking of it as any type of interaction can result in knowledge. It doesn't have to be coming from just a case or an incident. And so in many cases, you can have an interaction with no case or incident involved in that. So we had to think about what were the implications of having kind of caseless KCS. So lots of vocabulary updates. We also expanded the use of what we called the article state, and making that so that you could have more flexibility on how articles around visibility in their state and their governance, and also realizing that around governance we needed to have kind of a compliance type of category, because more and more, if we're taking it outside of support, or taking it into legal, for example, we had to start thinking about types of articles that might have compliance issues associated with them. So we put that under the governance category. We also have strengthened the leadership and communication section quite a bit, realizing that KCS is a major organizational change more than anything else. And in order to get that organizational change to become effective, it really takes very, very strong leadership and communication. So realizing that management, middle management, for example, had been a big hurdle to getting KCS to the level that people wanted it within organizations, what we were calling kind of the frozen middle has been the term that we've used, is that we really needed to strengthen the leadership and communication sections of the practices guide. So there's a large amount of information that is updated around that. And then also expanding, really measuring the health of KCS. So measurements has always been a hot topic within the members of the consortium, asking how do we measure things like communication, for example, and how do we measure the effectiveness of leadership. And then we've also added measures for process integration, which I'll go into. So that's kind of the sum of it. It's taken us 4 years to get all this done, so we're very happy that it's released. And we're seeing more and more momentum in getting KCS into organizations like HR, legal, human resources, starting to see more and more examples of that. And I encourage people that have examples of that to share those with the consortium. We did a little bit of restructuring of the way that the practices in the documentation is organized. And what we wanted to make it was more community type, to be able to gather more community type information. We've put the principles and core concepts in kind of the inner circle, and that's like a very small group of people controls and updates those, because those principles really will not change through the life cycle of KCS. And then the practices is at like another level, and then there'll be a larger group of people who can update. So we think of it as a licensing model, and we could license people to become KCS publishers within our practices guide. And then the third layer is what we're calling techniques. And this is our vision for the future, is to have a community of contributors of different techniques. So for example, if you are using KCS within a legal department, we would love to have examples and vocabulary around how you are doing KCS in those legal departments. So having a forum type area where people can start to contribute different techniques on how they're doing KCS in different functions within the organization. So the timeline for this is the KCS V6 practices guide was released in last April 2016. We made the big announcement at our member summit. And the certification then was released in September, has been released in September of 2016. And as part of the release of the certification, we created what we're calling a bridge exam. And this is an exam that covers the delta between V5 and V6. So people that already were holding a KCS V5 certification, we didn't want them to have to go through the process and pay the money that it takes to do the full certification. So we created a bridge exam, and many people have taken it so far, but there's still a lot that haven't, and I want to make sure that people understand that they can take this exam up until September of this year, the bridge exam, and then after that we will no longer offer it. Another huge advantage to this exam is that it is not proctored, so you can take it whenever you want, wherever you want, and the other big advantage is that it's only $85. So I really encourage people to take advantage of the bridge exam before we don't offer it any longer. At that point, you'll have to take the full KCS V6 practices exam. Are there any questions about that? Okay, good. Also, we have the KCS Aligned and Verified program, which is the program for vendors.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry. How many questions are going to be on this bridge exam?
I have, but that's on the next slide. So I'll get to that. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a technical question as well, which is how do we register for the exam?
Okay, I'm going to go over that as well. Good. How do we access the recording after the session? Kelly, a question for you. Let's see.
Sorry. Yep, on mute here. Sorry, with the recording of the session, is that what the question was?
Yeah.
It'll be on our YouTube channel, and I will send out a link to everyone who has registered with the link to the recording.
So the verified and aligned, KCS aligned and KCS verified programs, which is the program that we have for our vendors who develop knowledge management tools, as well as consultants who offer services around KCS. That will be released in April of this year. So we're pretty far. We're almost complete actually with the criteria for those programs, and the release will be in 2017. So after that release, you'll be able to go onto our site and see the tools that support, the tools and services that support KCS V6. So the bridge exam, more details. So it's online, not proctored, 25 questions. You get 60 minutes to complete the exam. You can use any materials available to you, so open book. Again, it'll be available till September of 2017. It covers the principles and core concepts and the key practices updates only, so only things that are new to V6. The bridge exam is $85. If you fail it, you can retake it, but you need to pay $85 again, and there's a 30-day waiting period before you can retake it each time you fail. So I'm going to go over some of the details of the changes that are important to know for taking the exam. So first of all, we've changed what KCS means. Most people don't know what it means in the first place, but originally in V5 it was knowledge-centered support. We're changing that. We changed that to knowledge-centered service. So that, again, to provide provide for a larger audience. Where we used to talk about an issue or an incident or a case, we're talking about, well, the vocabulary is a request. So a request is coming. So someone has a request of any type coming in. That request could be coming from a requester, which we used to use the vocabulary customer. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a customer who's asking a question. It could be a colleague from your company. If you were in an HR department, it could be a colleague from somewhere else in the business that's requesting something from you. We no longer are using the term support analyst. We're using the more generic term of knowledge worker. So a knowledge worker is anyone who's capturing, structuring, reusing knowledge within what we're calling an organization. We used to say a business, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a business. It can be any kind of organization. It doesn't have to be a formal organization. It could just be a group of people that form an organization. And then we've taken one vocabulary change I wanted to point out is we used to talk about rewards and recognition, and we've decided that we've used the word recognition now throughout and not rewards anymore, because a lot of times if you're not within a business and you're just working within a group of peers, rewards are not always effective. So recognition is always the most effective way to recognize or to promote people's contribution through recognition. So a hint to you is that anything on the exam that talks about rewards is probably not the right answer to that exam question. So there are the objectives of the bridge exam. There are 25 questions around principles, concept, article states, process integration indicators, and leadership and communication. There is a study guide for the bridge exam, and looks like Kelly just put that into the text. So everything from here forward that I'm going through is in the certification instructions. The link to the study guide is inside those certification instructions. These are also other resources, which I think Kelly's been sending the links to. So important to have the KCS Practices Guide, the study guide, if you find it. They're all hyperlinks that take you to the section of the Practices Guide where that objective is covered. So if you get to the study guide, you really can get to all of the objectives of the exam from there. As well as the adoption guide. There are I think two new questions on the exam that come from the adoption guide, so don't ignore that. The instructions, and then the study guide. So those are just the list of resources. And now I'm going to go into each of the changes in a little bit more detail. So under the KCS V6 principles, what we realized is that there are some common principles that go throughout KCS regardless of how you're implementing it. And a good test as to whether you're doing KCS or adhering to KCS or when you're taking the exam is to ask yourself these questions. And if you can answer yes to these questions, then you're probably doing KCS, or it's a KCS related thing. So first is that around abundance. So meaning that the more we share, the more we learn, the more people engage, the higher quality of impact. So what we're trying to do is to break down barriers, get as many people interacting as possible, sharing as much as we can. We're not trying to hoard knowledge anymore. We're not trying to keep it in silos or within tiers of the organization. So the principle of abundance. The other one is the principle of creating value, and this is about thinking about the big picture as opposed to just the task itself. So as knowledge workers are handling an interaction, they should be thinking about the big picture of sharing the information that comes from that interaction as part of the whole process, not just in the old way of thinking of closing the case and then moving on to the next one. So really you want knowledge to be the byproduct of that interaction and capture what we learn. And then always demand driven. This is a fairly challenging concept for people who have been very proactive about knowledge management, and what KCS is really about the sense and respond. And when someone asks a question or starts an interaction, that's when we create knowledge, and then we improve knowledge as we use the knowledge. And then the last principle is about trust and empowering people to do the right thing and to engage them and recognize them for what they do, as opposed to, again, making sure that knowledge is pristine and perfect and not letting knowledge go out or not letting people create knowledge unless they have a certain level of responsibility within the organization. So we want to empower as many people as we possibly can to make good judgments and trust that they will do the right thing, and then have the process come behind that and make sure it supports people doing the right thing. So the objectives that go with the principles on the exam, there are 4 of them. I think there's probably 4 questions, one on each of these different principles, to identify how abundance contributes to KCS success, how create value contributes to KCS success, demand driven contributes to KCS success, and how trust contributes to KCS success. So those are the 4 objectives around the principles. And then there are the core concept exam objectives. None of these are new. These have always been part of KCS, I mean, as well as the principles, but we've just kind of pointed them out in a different document. But these are all the objectives for the core concepts. We talk about coaching. We talk about how the knowledge needs to be integrated into the workflow. How do you sustain KCS benefits over time? We talk a lot about driving organizational change through communication, buy-in, making sure people are aligned with the vision of the organization, driving all those changes, and really looking at the benefits of the double loop process and how we continually evolve and how the B loop needs to support the A loop. So nothing new there, but just pointed out in a different way. So this part is new. This is under the content health section of the KCS practices, and this is around the article state. And what we've done is divided the article state into 3 different metadata fields. So you could envision these as being additional metadata items that are attached to your article that get set by the responder or the person creating the knowledge article. And the first one would be article confidence. So how confident they are in this resolution. So this is where they would set this to. I'm not very confident, so I'm going to keep this as a work in progress, for example, and saying that I'm still working on this article, not confident in it. Then we have the article visibility, which who can see this article, and then the article governance. Now these 3 things work in conjunction with the licensing model, so you can kind of slice and dice who sees what at what time. So who sees articles that are work in progress, and who can edit, create, or modify articles based on their governance level. So this is really becomes your permission or your user licensing model within your tool of how you configure your tool for different levels of visibility and permissions. So these are the 4 article confidence levels. The first one means that it's a work in progress, so I am continuing to work on this. So if you find this article, you use it with caution because it probably doesn't have a resolution yet, and I'm not confident in what's there, but it's still important to share because other people may be working on the same article, and it's the same problem. And they might find this article and say, oh, I'm working on that article as well. Let's work together. The next article confidence is not validated. This means I've finished the article. I have a resolution, but I'm either not confident in it because only maybe one person has implemented this resolution, so I'm not totally confident in it, or I don't have the license to mark it as validated. So I'm still a KCS candidate. I haven't been given privileges to mark something as validated. So I'm not licensed to do that. So those are the 3 states, and then the 4th one is archived, meaning that it's probably it'll still be in the database. It'll still be there. It doesn't get deleted, but it won't be part of the search. Won't be returned as part of the search engine. So article visibility, this is going to be determined by your own levels, how many levels you have, how many you need. This is probably the most that someone might have. So you can see internal as a small group, and then you just expand out the circle if you had partners that you wanted to extend your visibility to, customers, and then public. So that's kind of the most extensive visibility that you would have, or you may just have internal, external, depending on what your business needs. And then you also could segment it by a particular domain. So you could have only people that are internal within HR can see this subset of knowledge. And then article governance can be either controlled or collective. So controlled is that a very small group controls the updates, and then a larger group of licensed contributors and publishers can contribute to the collective knowledge base. We also call this compliance-based, could be your inner circle, and experience-based could be your outer circle. So for example, if you had a set of policies and procedures that was released that will not be changed, it's kind of like this is how things work, it's not going to make any difference. That could be your inner compliance level of documentation. And then as people ask questions about that, compliance-based documentation. To expand it, that could be your experience-based collective loop. So the exam objectives on content health cover the confidence, article, state, visibility, and governance. And then there's also some questions around the key enablers for self-service success, which you should take a look at. They're not a lot different than what they were in V5 on that one. So the other new thing is process integration indicators. And I think some people have known this as RQI, or Resolution Quality Index, but we're calling it the process integration indicators. And this is an indication of how your knowledge workers are following the A-loop workflow. So it's, are they searching before they're creating? Are they linking when they're searching? And then how accurate are the links that they're linking to the content to? And are they modifying as they're finding articles that need to be updated? And are they creating articles where there was no article found? So it's really their adherence to following the whole problem-solving process, or the A-loop. So this is a new metric that we've added for V6 that works in conjunction with the article quality index. So the article quality index only looked at what the actual created article quality was, but not the actual workflow. So this is a new indicator. And then there's also what we're calling contribution index, which is the an overall score for these things combined. So there are 2 objectives on the exam, and one of them is about the value of having a process integration indicators and the elements of the process integration indicators. So a hint on this one is that it's not part of the AQI. The AQI is about content, and the PII is about workflow. Under leadership, one of the new sections is around elements of a vision. So getting people to buy into organizational change really is about aligning to the purpose or the why it's important for them to do that, because knowledge is very personal, and asking people to give up what they personally know takes more than just carrots and sticks to make people do that. So it's very important to for people to know the value statement and the value that they're seeking to create by having people do KCS. And then the mission statement is, how do we go about creating that value? And then the values are, how do we interact with others in creating value? And then the brand promises, what is the desired attributes of the relationships with others, and the things that we want others to say about us, as far as the services that we deliver would be a good example, and the knowledge that you're providing to your customers. So that's a new section in leadership. These are the objectives around that. So it's important to know the difference between a brand promise, a mission, know what motivates people. And the leader's responsibility in sustaining KCS is really about communicating that vision and in the mission of the organization and upholding those. It is not the leader's responsibility to create the processes and the workflows and making sure that people are adhering to those. It's really the people who are doing the work to create the workflows and how they're going to do their job, but it's the leader's responsibility to really communicate the mission and the values and the brand promise around how they get the benefits of KCS. Also, another hint, which I said earlier, is using the word recognition, not rewards. This is something we do throughout. So if you see the word rewards, that's probably not the right answer. So there are also 2 questions around KCS adoption on this bridge exam. And the hint here is that those doing the job should design the workflow, not leadership. Leadership tends to over-engineer a workflow and how the job gets done. So a big part of KCS is engaging the people who are going to be doing the job and deciding how they're going to do the job. And why phases of adoption are important is around making sure that you're measuring the right things at the right phases of adoption and you're not adopting too quickly. We suggest that you adopt in waves, and then at the end of each wave, look at where you are before you roll out to more, because it is an organizational change, and if people start adopting the bad behaviors and you continue to roll out those bad behaviors, it just proliferates the problem. So how do you go about taking the bridge exam or finding it? First of all, hopefully everybody knows where the kcsacademy.net website is. On that page, if you go under the certification pull down, you'll see the practices V5 to V6 bridge exam. On that page, you log directly into Web Assessor. So those of you who struggled through our old process using Integral 7, our credential management system, the good news is we got rid of that. And we're using, you'll do your registration right in the testing software, which is Web Assessor. So if you already took the V5 exam, you already have a Web Assessor account. So if you have your old Web Assessor login, you can use that, or you can go up to the top right of the Web Assessor page, which I don't have here, but you can, you know, say you forgot your password and it'll send you your a new password to your Web Assessor account. If you really can't find it, you can email certman@thekcsacademy.net, and Jill and I can send that, send your account information along to you. I'd suggest not creating a new account if you had taken the V5 exam, because it won't know that you've already taken the V5 exam, so you won't be able to take the bridge exam. So you need to make sure you use the same Web Assessor account that you use for your V5 certification. So you go to Web Assessor, you log in using your Web Assessor candidate information. That email would have come from Welcome to Web Assessor, if you need to search your email to find it. And then you'll come to a page that looks similar to this, and there'll be a catalog, and what you want to do is hit the plus sign on the left there to expand the V6 Practices catalog. And then under the V6 Practices catalog, you'll see this V6 Practices Bridge Exam option, and you click the Buy Now. And then you'll be just ready to check out. So you just hit purchase and you can put in your credit card information there, or if you've gotten a voucher coupon code from a certified trainer, that's where you would put it in. And then you just check out. So it's a fairly simple process. Once you've registered, you'll see in your account a launch button to launch the exam whenever you're ready to take it. So I'm going to stop there and answer some questions. So there was a question about the slides being available to the participants, and yes, Kelly will send those out to everyone on the call. Are there any other questions? I'm looking through the list of questions. Someone asked about the practice test online, and the answer is yes, there is a practice test It's not much different than the practice test if you took it before you did the V5 exam, except for the vocabulary changes will be part of that. So if you want to take a practice test before you take the beta or the V6 practices exam, that's available in that same catalog on Web Assessor. It's not proctored, $85. I think you get an hour to finish it. Do we have the option to select a date for taking the bridge exam? You can take it whenever you want, but you need to take it before September of 2017.
And Melissa, when you register for the test, do you have to then start the test right away, or can you register and pay and then come back and take it whenever you want?
You can come back and take it whenever you want, but it does have to be in one sitting. So you have to take it within, you only have 60 minutes to take it once you start it. But you can start it at any time. You don't have to start it. So you could buy it right now, and it would just be part of your account until you took it, until you completed it. Somebody asked that they changed their affiliations. How do they change their company? So again, if you could email certman@theKCSacademy.net with that information, Jill can update your record and resend you your information. Same if you don't know your account.
And Melissa, did you see the question about new certificates upon completion and success?
I did not see that. As soon as I scroll through them, it's like one more comes in, and then the whole list goes back to where I was.
Yeah.
Yes, you will need to sign a updated logo use agreement, and you will get a new certificate and a new logo with the same KCS V6 practices certified. Were there any other ones, Kelly?
Yeah, so a question about, can you give the exam sitting at your office, or should I visit a consortium test center, one of the proctored test centers? So if you're taking the bridge exam, you can do that wherever you are. So that's a non-proctored test. You can take it on any computer at any time. If you are taking the V6 practices exam, the whole thing, the $450 certification, that has to be done at a proctored test center.
That's a good question.
And you mentioned the test is open book, so I can have all these resources available, searching for them, etc., for the 25 questions.
Yes.
Is that what you? Okay.
Only for the bridge exam. But if you're taking the full practices, it's proctored, and you do need to go to a test center, and there will be no materials available. That's why I'm encouraging people that are certified in V5 to take the bridge.
Is it valid until V7?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
There is a 60-minute limit on the test, right, Melissa, on the bridge exam?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's open book, but you got to study first because you only have 60 minutes to get it done.
Right.
And we have had people fail. We have had people fail the bridge exam, unfortunately.
What's the passing score?
We don't release the passing score, but it's where we think it needs to be in order to people to demonstrate that they're competent in V6.
Okay, thank you.
Is the old pin still valid?
That was me, Melissa. The question was, will I get an awesome new V6 certified pin to proudly wear everywhere I go? And the answer is no new pins. I'm so sorry, but your old pin is still valid. You can wear that all the time, and I hope that you are. And Jason does. Thank you, Jason. And then there's a question about the pass-fail rate, and I'm not sure if the question is about how many people pass sort of as a percentage or what the cutoff is to pass, but that, as Melissa was mentioning, we don't advertise that. We don't what's the wording there?
We don't release what the actual percent of questions right or wrong to pass are. And we also, we don't disclose it, right? That's a good word. Thank you, Jason. We also don't, we don't say how many people pass or fail it, but our intent on this is to get a pretty high pass. We want people to really pass this, particularly because they've already passed to B5. And then, do I come to know what questions went wrong in the exam? No, we can't release the questions because then the questions would become public. So you will get, if you got 50% of the questions wrong in any one objective, it will come back and tell you that to recommend you study this objective. So for example, in the leadership section, if you got 50% of those objectives wrong, it'll come back and say, recommend that you study leadership, or we recommend that you study core concepts. So that's the only feedback that we can provide. We can't provide the actual question, but we can provide the objectives that we recommend that you study. And that comes back as your test complete. There's a test completion email that comes when you're done, and it'll tell you which objectives we recommend you study if you fail. Okay, so it seems like we've got most of the questions answered. We have an announcement, which we're very excited about, is that there's a new online interactive training and exam that is in beta right now that will be released by the end of February. So this is the KCS Fundamentals online training, and it's for an audience of an introduction, so someone who has had no experience with KCS, but will be acting as a knowledge worker. So these could be first-line agents or anyone that's capturing, instruction, recreating knowledge that you want to give an introduction to KCS to. So that's available on the KCS Academy website under online training. We encourage everyone to take a look at it. There's you can get there's 5 lessons as part of the training, and you can get the first lesson for free, and then after that you can purchase the other 4 lessons for $97. It's self-paced. You can go through it at your leisure. Great introduction for someone who doesn't know anything about KCS. There's also an exam that goes with that, which is also a non-proctored. Right now it's 23 questions. You get 1 hour to finish it. Exam associated with the fundamentals. So there's been a lot of people asking for a very introductory level course and certification. So now that's available to everyone. And Kelly put the link on the website. It could also be if you need a refresher. If you took V5 practices a long time ago and you want a refresher, I would suggest that as well. That's probably money well spent if you're worried about passing the exam as a good refresher. The other announcement I wanted to share with you is that the Consortium Member Summit, and even though it's called the Member Summit, it's not just for members, it's also for non-members, or if you're thinking about becoming a member, it's a great way to interact with the consortium members, great networking opportunities for for meeting other people in the industry who are having challenges around KCS, and you know, talk to them about the tools that they're implementing or how the challenges that they're facing within KCS. So I recommend checking that out. That's on the consortium website. It's going to be, the conference is April 3rd through 5th in Monterey, California. Any questions about that?
The fundamentals exam is 85, right, Melissa?
Okay. The course is, yeah, the course is 97. The exam is 85.
Perfect. And then there's a package option for that. You can get them together for 167.
Yep. Any other questions? Everybody's going to go off and take their bridge exam. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody register and pass. Okay, everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.